Hey guys, Marty here. Welcome back to Snappy Videos. In this video, we're going to be attempting to answer two big questions. What is the GS Ball? And who made the GS Ball? The second question is going to be a lot harder and more speculative. However, by the end of this video, you'll have some pretty good ideas as to who might have made the GS Ball. I'll first discuss the GS Ball in the anime, as that's where 99% of us would have first been introduced to the GS Ball. Then we'll discuss the GS Ball as it appears in the Pokemon games. The GS Ball is a gold and silver looking Pokeball, which has the letters G and S engraved into the front of it. We first heard about the GS Ball in the Pokemon episode Pallet Party Panic, where Professor Oak had been contacted by Professor Ivy, who is a Pokemon researcher based in the Orange Islands after she discovered a mysterious Pokeball. However, she was unable to open this ball, even though she had used various tools, including hacksaws and lasers. For some strange reason, the ball she discovered couldn't be transported like normal Pokeballs, so someone had to go retrieve it from it. Professor Oak tasked Ash and the gang with this mission. After a while in the Orange Islands, which I honestly think is an amazing series, we eventually see Ash return the GS Ball to Professor Oak. Professor Oak took the GS Ball from Ash to allow him some time to study it. But after a while of study, Oak couldn't work out what it was, where it came from, or what, if anything, was inside of the GS Ball. After Oak decided he couldn't conduct any further meaningful research, he requested Ash head to the Johto region, which has to be my favourite region of Pokemon. And while he's there, speak to a Pokeball researcher and manufacturer named Kurt in Azalea Town. Ash made his way to the Johto region and eventually gave the ball to Kurt, the Pokeball researcher. So where is the GS Ball now? Well, Kurt has it, as far as we know. There hasn't really been any evidence to suggest that Kurt made any discoveries with the ball, and the GS Ball was never actually returned to Ash. I have some theories about what may have happened with the GS Ball after Kurt acquired it, but we'll talk about that soon. Our first question answered. What is the GS Ball? In 2008, an interview with Masamitsu Kadaka explained this in great detail. Masamitsu said that the GS Ball, at least in the TV series, was originally going to contain a Celebi, and this was going to lead to a story arc in the Johto saga that would have been heavily based around Celebi itself. Unfortunately, we never got a Celebi story arc as Celebi featured in the fourth Pokemon movie. I enjoyed the fourth Pokemon movie, it was good to see Celebi on the big screen. So that tells us what they had planned for the GS Ball in the Pokemon TV series. But did it appear in the main series games? GS Ball in the Pokemon games. The GS Ball appeared in Pokemon Crystal, but only in the Japanese version. The code was there in the English release, but it wasn't obtainable in the game, although the GS Ball could be obtained in the Japanese version through an event. So was Celebi present in the GS Ball in the Pokemon Crystal, as it was intended to be in the anime? Well, not exactly. To explain further, once the GS Ball had been acquired by the player, they could take the GS Ball to Kurt, much like in the anime, and have him analyze the ball overnight. After Kurt analyzes the ball, the Ilex Forest becomes restless, and the player is then required to take the ball to the Ilex Forest Shrine and place it in there. After that, a level 30 Wild Celebi will then appear. So it doesn't show that Celebi is necessarily in the GS Ball, but the ball has everything to do with Celebi appearing. Unfortunately, that was only in the Japanese version of Pokemon Crystal, at least on the original games. In the Virtual Console release of Pokemon Crystal, for all languages, you can get the GS Ball after entering and exiting the Goldenrod Pokemon Center and entering the Hall of Fame. This is exciting, and players outside Japan have the opportunity to get their very own legitimate Celebi, without a special event or a code. As of the making of this video, the Nintendo eShop is still open, but they're going to be closing it very soon. So you still have time to download the Virtual Console version of Pokemon Crystal to your Nintendo DS and get yourself a Celebi. The big question. Who made the GS Ball? Well, I'd like to start this section by saying we don't exactly know who made the GS Ball, but I'm going to present to you two ideas that I think are entirely possible. Kurt made it. Maybe someone hired Kurt, or Kurt possibly found information about Celebi, then created the ball to summon Celebi. My first theory involves the guy we know is so well known for making Pokeballs, especially Pokeballs with special abilities. Let's look at some facts that we know are true. Kurt is very talented when it comes to making Pokeballs. Not only does he make Pokeballs for catching Pokemon, but they also have special abilities that far exceed normal balls. For example, the level ball, a Pokeball that has a higher chance of catching a Pokemon if their level is lower than yours. Or the Moon Ball, gives you a higher success rate of catching Pokemon that evolve using a Moonstone. It's pretty interesting how someone is able to make Pokeballs that are very specific with what they catch. Or look at the Friend Ball, a ball that sets the caught Pokemon's happiness to 200. These are some very crazy things to be able to do with Pokeballs. This guy may very well know more than we first thought. Not only does Kurt make some pretty interesting balls with some awesome abilities, but he also resides in Azalea Town, the home of Gym Leader Bugsy. But more importantly, this town is set at the entrance to Ilex Forest, and the Ilex Forest is where we find Celebi using the GS Ball. Alright, there's some facts out of the way. Now to some speculation. Kurt is learning everything he can about Pokeballs, their creation, and how he can make Pokeballs out of these interesting items that grow on trees, apricorns. Surely over the time, he found other less known apricorns that created some less than desirable Pokeballs. Maybe he came across one that exploded when the Pokemon was caught. Maybe another caught the Pokemon and then flew away. But one day, when Kurt was wandering around the Ilex forest, testing out a new creation, the Level Ball, made from a red apricorn that Kurt found on Route 37. He had tested this ball before, but he had to make some alterations as the last one cracked. Kurt had caught a low-level Caterpie with it. He noted down in his book, Prototype 2A seems to have a high rate of capture when facing a Pokemon that is weaker than mine. Just as he started to leave, he sees a green flash, but it was too fast for his old eyes. He finds an apricorn on the ground. It is nothing like anything he has seen in Johto before. He gets a strange feeling as he picks it up, as if time is moving differently. The apricorn is split almost evenly down the middle, with gold on the top half and silver on the bottom. Kurt hurried home to examine the apricorn in his lab. He spent countless nights, up until the sun rose, trying to work out exactly how to make this apricorn into a Pokeball, and what it might do. He was progressing with this, but he still had a lot to figure out, until one night he returned to the Ilex forest, where he went back to the place where he found the apricorn. He sat there for what felt like hours, thinking, looking around for a clue as to what might be required to build this ball, and what it might be for. Then, out of nowhere, he saw the same green flash he did the first time he was in this spot. He looked down, expecting to see another gold and silver apricorn, but this time, he didn't see a gold and silver apricorn. No, it was the mythical Pokemon, Celebi. Celebi provided Kurt with specific instructions on how to build the Pokeball, and then said, once completed, bring the ball to the shrine. Kurt spent the next month building this very interesting ball. Celebi did not tell him what the ball was for, or anything other than bring it to the shrine once it's completed. So as Celebi instructed, Kurt finished the ball and took it to the shrine. He set the ball in the shrine and Celebi appeared. Celebi asked Kurt to take the ball to Cherry Grove under the cover of darkness and place the ball into the ocean. Kurt looked confused, but without time to ask any questions, the ball opened up and Celebi was sucked inside. The engravings G and S appeared on the ball. Kurt nearly fell over in amazement. What is going on? He grabbed his trusty Slowpoke, a bag of custom Pokeballs, and set off to Cherry Grove under the cover of darkness. When he arrived, he threw the GS ball into the ocean and returned home. Several weeks later, on Valencia Island in the Orange Archipelago, Professor Ivy was walking along the beach and noticed something strange washed up, the GS ball. That's the first of my 2 GS ball theories. What do you guys think so far? It's based off of some facts, and I fill in some information in the middle to make it line up with the TV show. It doesn't explain what happened when Kurt gets the ball back. Maybe when he gets the ball, he finds a way to release Celebi, and then it joins the series for the 4th movie. My second theory is an interesting one, playing on Celebi's ability to time travel. Somewhere in the distant future, Celebi meets with Boris, a 45-year-old Pokeball researcher, Kurt's grandson, who has taken over the family Pokeball business. Time-traveling Pokemon are more common in this time, with over 2,000 species of Pokemon being discovered. Boris was not scared. In fact, he'd actually met Celebi one time before. When he was younger and wandering the forest, a wild Raticate attacked him. Luckily, Celebi was there to intervene. Celebi looked worried. It explained that something bad was going to happen, and in order to prevent the destruction of the world as we know it, Celebi would need to be removed from this point in time and hidden in a special kind of Pokeball. One that could not be opened by normal means. It needed to be sent back in time, to a time when time-traveling Pokemon were not roaming around, when the number of known Pokemon was less than 300. Using the power of the Apricorn 5000 machine, Boris created a Pokeball with just the right specifications and met Celebi in the Ilex forest. The forest remained reasonably unchanged over all these years, while under the protection of Celebi. Boris and Celebi went into the Ilex forest and headed towards the shrine, the only thing powerful enough to send Celebi back to the time in question. Boris threw the Pokeball into the shrine, where Celebi almost seemed to fuse with it, and then nothing. Celebi was gone. Back in the past, there was a flash in a seemingly silent forest. The GS ball appeared in the shrine and then shot up into the air, landing in the water around the Orange Islands, waiting for a certain Pokemon professor to find it and kick off a series of events that introduce us to the GS ball. Now those 2 theories aren't true, but they sure would fit in with things we know are fact and make for an awesome Pokemon story. What do you guys think about the GS ball? Who made it? Where did it come from? Let's talk about it in the comments below, and why not check out one of these videos next?